Cracking on, even if it means an early start, it'll mean an early finish. So if those people who are meant to be on stage could come on stage, I think the idea is that we will ask you questions then, because there will be more people on stage than in the audience. Yeah, if I could have John Ranelagh, Johan, Linden, Jean-Marc Dubois, Grethe and Nick, who's outside being interviewed at the moment. Yeah, we're just in a minority, aren't we? Yeah, there must be something that's happening in the swimming pool which is enormously good fun. Anyway, today's been the day of answers and ideas, or at least it should have been. And what I hope we'd find out is whether in fact it has been. We used words this morning about, fighting back, overcoming challenges, renaissance of regional television. I think what we need to know is, are these empty phrases? Are they just weak thoughts? Or is it something that's going to happen? And if so, how is it going to happen? And have we heard and have we had the information in the past day that it will happen? So on stage, a fairly heavyweight range of decision makers in regional television. The people who will be forced to take investment decisions and decide that spending on social networking is more important than creating a drama or something along those lines. So perhaps I can start. Nick, if you want to join us. Perhaps if I can start by going along the line, and we've said regional television, public service broadcasting, we've got lots of advantages. Well, what do you see as those main advantages? And no platitudes, please. Let's start, John Ranelagh.
Being literally close to the audience is a major advantage. I think Joe in the last session pointed up another one, which is if, as is often the case, you have a minority language as well, that is able to travel far further than majority languages. And that does have a direct commercial advantage in terms of money, but also in terms of expanding the awareness of your audience. But I think that the real thing is that with any luck, regional broadcasting is less, I hope, bureaucratic than central broadcasting, and one wants to take full advantage of that wherever it's possible to do so, simply to be quicker and much more reactive to the immediate audience and getting away from the politics that bedevil us all.
Okay, John, Johan?
Well, the closeness to the audience, of course, and then I think that it's perhaps easier for regional television to embrace social media because it's closer to what regional television and local media have done in terms of contact with the audience. So I think that that's a real possibility also.
Greta.
Having met many of the viewers or many of the winners this morning, I noticed that it seems that there is a trend that a news item produced in the newsroom starts, and then some people in the newsroom take the idea and they start digging and they get behind the whole story, and it ends up with very good documentaries. And I think that is a strength that you find more in a regional station than in a big office, in main office, because it's so closer, so that you have the boss just around the corner and you get the opportunity to sort of dig into that news. And I think that's a strength that will be good to have with us. Okay, so closeness to the audience, speed of reaction, the value of being in touch with people from local news. Anything else, Jean-Marc?
Yes, in France we are in the law, so they can't kill us because they have to change the law. That's the first point. The second point is that we represent, or we deal with the local politicians, and they need us, and they vote the license fee, and I'm sure they will continue to come in our studios. No, I'm kidding, but anyway, we respond to a need, because I'm sure that what we do in a local part of our channel, the national can do it. It's not his mission, it's our mission. So there is no reason, because I found a lot of the audience here was a bit pessimistic on our future. I don't really agree. I would be more pessimistic about private regional TV, because the advertising is hard to find. But for us, it's easier anyway. And I just want to say, talking about information, that we are the only one able to give the audience what she wants about the local news. There is no reason for a national channel to give the small news of the town, of the region. That's our business, and we are the only one able to make it, to produce it, because the private TV, it costs too much to make news. That's I don't know if it's everywhere the same, but in France, it's the more expensive.
Yeah. Okay, and Nick, the biggest advantage you can see? As
I've gone last, can I just say what they said? I think unlike France, some of the politicians would love to kill us, and so we're constantly fighting for our survival, it feels. I think a large purpose of public service television is to reflect the audience back to themselves in their interests, in their issues, and it's great to be able to do that on a local level, to really be able to understand the culture of a local audience, and deliver content that they'll love because you know them. In the landscape we're in, I think it's terribly exciting, the creative challenges we have to survive in the new world, in the new financial world, in the new technological world. We're living through the most wonderful, fantastic technology revolution I think the world has ever seen, and we're at the edge of that. We are the representatives of the creative industries in all of our regions and all of our countries. What a privilege to be part of that.
Okay, well, I want to check those list of advantages with people in the audience. We've had closeness to the audience, speed of reaction, news, localness. Is there anything they've left out?
All the money we have is a big advantage.
All the market?
The money.
Oh, the money.
I've got lots of it.
Have we? Oh, right. Didn't know that. Right. Well, I'd rather like to challenge you then, because two of you mentioned closeness to the audience, yeah, and two of you said local. We're regional. Is the future of regional local? Silence. Who wants to go first?
Yes.
Jean-Marc.
No, I would say local and universal. Universal on the theme, on the ideas we can have in our programs, but the local part of our program, the territory is very important. Yes, local.
Would you see in France, I know you showed us the map with all the regions and sub-regions, do you see yourself eventually moving to city or town TV?
Yes. I told you this morning that we plan to launch 24 web TV.
That's right.
And we want to implement services, local services about traffic jam, etc., and so on, weather and so. Because we're producing so much, and we're not using all that that, we want to be a sort of crossroad, as McNamara said, to be there, to be a sort of reference for our audience in the news, in the services, documentaries, the history. So we hope to do that. I don't know.
And the law that helps you to feel so confident, that won't stop you developing into local?
No. The law? No.
The law? No. Nick? BBC and local.
Well,
if the future's local, where's the BBC?
Well, our job as BBC Scotland is sort of split into two halves. We do the bit of being a local broadcaster, so we make programmes that BBC Scotland funds for BBC Scotland, but we also make programmes for the BBC as a whole, for the network. I'm sure that's common with loads of the broadcasters, and that's also really, really important. A national broadcaster can't just be capital-centric. The BBC shouldn't just transmit programmes full of people with wussy, soft Southern accents like mine. There should be accents and issues from every geography, every demographic from all over the country transmitted naturally, and that's another big job for the regional and local broadcasters, don't you think?
John, I mean, you mentioned closeness to audience, but my experience is that subscription TV channels know a lot more about the people who watch their programmes than you know who watch your programmes. Aren't they the ones who are close to the audience, not regional public service broadcasters?
Yes, they are obviously close to the audience because the audience has taken a decision to pay for them directly, but it's not necessarily a local or a regional audience. It can be an audience within the nation, within the country as a whole, and that is different. You and I were talking earlier today after Jean-Marc, because the development that you've made, Jean-Marc, on being able to put local stroke regional programming into the main schedule where it's appropriate is a very obvious thing to do, and it's jolly good that it's being done. And I think just because something may have a strong geographical base, and I think that's what we mean when we're talking about both local and regional, does not mean it is not of national interest.
Can I ask people in the audience, this is 2010 to 2020, do you expect that in the next 10 years, local will become more important than regional?
You want hands?
No feeling, or just fear that it might? Okay. In 2020, which will be more important, local or regional? Grethe?
No, actually, I was going to change the focus, because we have sometimes discovered that what brings people together isn't so much tied with where they live. That is much more tied with what kind of interest they have. So that might change the perspective on local and regional, and it might be interests, certain groups having things common. So maybe if that trend continues, well, at least what I have read some places, it's not so important where you come from anymore.
Right. Johan?
Well, I think the question is wrong, because geography is not any longer a valid category for journalism. We have been dividing journalism in local, regional, and national, and I think that technology is actually changing the whole concept of geography when it comes to intellectual work and cultural work. So I think that you can't say that local is going to be more important than regional, because both concepts are changing right now.
But one may be more financially sustainable than the other.
Yeah, local.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly my feeling that over the next 10 years we will have to address localism even more than we do regionalism now.
Question?
Yes.
It's about local and regional. Is the case that the regional organization is stronger, but I think the local news is becoming more important. So that regional stations have to use their organization to be more on local spots. So, and I still think that VJ is a good investment, because then you have more journalists on different spots. And social media is another instrument you can use to connect with the people. So I think as an organization, a regional organization is still strong, also for the future.
Yeah, but the regions will have to subdivide and cover the cities and the towns a lot more than they do now.
Yes, they have
not necessarily in linear form, but in all sorts of social networking ways.
Is there no market impact issue in the other nations? Because this is the big problem facing the BBC. The more local we want to get, the more we're criticised of stamping on the toes of those who are providing local news, newspapers, commercial radio stations.
Yeah, the BBC has basically been told, keep out of local.
Don't go any more local than you are now.
Nobody else would find a problem with localising services? No, BBC, you're on your own. At last, a disadvantage for the BBC. But, can I turn to the other thing which I've heard mantraed? Yesterday it was content is king, money is queen. Today it's slightly different. Content is king, conversation is queen. But the constant there is content is king. Are we in the next 10 years going to be able to sustain the quality of content that we believe we have now? Or are we, because of various pressures, going to find it harder and harder and harder to sustain a range of regional or local programming? John, you do acquisitions.
Yes. We need to be far more clearly focused than we are at the moment. The fact of the matter is, for example, that for the last 12, 15 years, the people responsible for our industry have lost confidence in it and think that the future belongs to the internet. Well, it doesn't. I think it's more and more clear that television is here to stay and is a strong force. It may not be as strong as it was when it had a monopolistic position, but nevertheless it's very strong. But the element of strength is the program creation. And just because it no longer happens on a screen like that, but happens on computers and telephones and God knows what else is going to come down the track, doesn't mean that the programming itself need be any less good than it is now. It just needs to be monetized, and therefore the contracts behind it need to be developed in a new way, a new business model in effect.
Grethe, you sat as a judge looking at the Prix entries, and today you've been to meet the winners almost all the day. What is the quality, and do you get the feel that the range is beginning to contract because of financial problems?
Well, what we discovered was that even if there were fewer entries this year, the quality of the program being entered were good, and we also discovered that money is not the only inspiration for program makers. But I think that in 2020, when you say quality today, I don't think that will be the same. You won't define it like you do today. The media users, or the pattern of the media user is changing. And if we look at our kids, how they won't sit down and look at the documentary of 58 minutes. We could say that that documentary is fantastic, the quality is fantastic, but if the viewers in 2020 don't take the time to that, I think that the definition of quality will change. That makes it difficult to discuss it today.
Grethe, do you think those attention deficit youths will grow up and remain attention deficit, or do you think they will grow up into people who will watch hour-long documentaries?
I don't think they will do it the way we do it. There will be some differences. They will grow into a different pattern, but I don't think they will end where we did. They won't spend every Saturday evening, Friday evening in front of the television like we have been doing.
But Jean-Marc, do you have any concerns about your ability in the future to provide programming of quality?
No, I'm sure, yes, I have some concern, but I'm sure we will adapt our production to the needs of the audience, or to what we think wants the audience, but the audience wants what we offer. So I have no fear about that. I'm sure we'll be here in 10 years from now, maybe not in the same pattern, maybe not with the same news. I like, for example, live news, New York One, the way they do the news. We don't know how to do that in France. We should try for our public. So maybe we will change, but I don't see why we should disappear, or we should have less quality in our programs. And I agree with you. The quality is not only the audience, but it changes with years and the way we watch. And when you see the archives, I can tell you that some good programs were good 10 years ago, but now they are awful. You can watch them. Not all of them, part of them.
YouTube functions as a Darwinian survival of the fittest. Yeah. Absolutely.
Because I'm laughing because our president, the small one but the big one, Nicolas Sarkozy, talked about a program called Thierry Lafronde, which was in the 60s or 70s, black and white. It's, I mean, just if you have time, just type on the Thierry Lafronde and see what it is. And for him, it was the summum of the quality. And he said, you knew how to do that, now you're not good anymore. Maybe you should see.
Okay, question or comment from David Wood.
Thanks. Yes, I mean, one of the strengths that regional public service broadcasters have is actually their mission, isn't it? In the sense that this does attract good people. It attracts creative people, and it is content that matters in the end. But what I've noticed is that really nobody, as far as I know, any time today has mentioned what the people outside of your world, of our world, would say, which would be to ask the other question of, are regional broadcasters efficient? Are you using your staff and your resources as well as they could be? Is there any element of restricted practices? Is there any overstaffing? I mean, these are difficult questions. I don't have the answers, because probably the EBU might be the most overstaffed organisation in Europe. I don't know, but
I think it's a very, very valid point, and I was certainly going to come on to that as part of our ability to move to 2020. So can I put the question to Johan, because Johan, apart from managing change at SVT, has also been in the Ideas Bazaar today. Do you get the feeling that we are really up for efficiency, or is this one of the things which is going to stop us achieving everything?
Yes, I do have that feeling that most stations and broadcasters are working to be more efficient. There are cutbacks everywhere. And for instance, the presentation of the TV2 Mozart program, where you can run a whole channel with one person. It's that kind of processes that both will enhance quality and lower costs. So I think that's very much part of everyday life in our stations.
Yeah. Anybody else on the efficiencies?
We've got to. We're spending the public's money, and we live in a time of enormous accountability. I think we simply have to be more efficient and more smart with how we spend our money, how we spend the audience's money.
And can I move on to news? Because part of being close to the audience, and one of the pluses of regional television has been mentioned as the news. Do you see news being more of regional content by 2020? Is it going to be absolutely fundamental and perhaps even more so to what we do? Johan?
Yeah, I think that it's all public service stations all around Europe. I think will focus more on news, because that's an always good market, and that's also very close to the vision of public service. So I think that it will be also very important to work and find ways to work with internet and news, and that is going to be more important than actual old traditional broadcasts.
Grethe, news, core?
Definitely, because I think that more and more of us will consume other television programs à la carte. When we feel like it, we won't watch what we want to like, what we want to watch. So that the old way of watching television, I think that will disappear. The only thing that you will watch on TV is you want the news and the sport or European Song Contest when it takes place. But a lot of the other programs, I think we will choose to digest or consume when we feel like it.
Jean-Marc, same?
Yes, and a lot of practical things. Maybe upgrade the quality in the way we analyze the news and we explain to people, even in a local TV, because we can do that.
Yeah. And Nick and John, you go along with that, would you? News is the basis and the...
It's always going to be a core part of any broadcaster's output.
It's just that it worries me. Well, because you're building a future on what we have heard today or yesterday, they merge into one for me, literally. That news is where the competition is. You've got newspapers out there, you've got people providing their own news services. How on earth can you sustain the brands that you want and the loyalty that you want by building on something which everybody is now providing and desperate to provide?
To be the best.
Isn't it risk?
Exactly, we are the best.
To be the best.
Well,
it's great to have confidence.
I'd add to that, David, that news, as Grethe was saying, live events effectively, are the one thing that we do that other people do not do. Radio can cover it perhaps even more quickly, but not with pictures. We are the only people who bring you the pictures of what's happening
almost
now.
Every newspaper now is training video journalists.
Yes.
People out in the streets are carrying cameras and providing news. How can you cling to that sort of 20th century view, John?
Well, it's because that's how you see the news. And just because more people are doing it and there's more competition does not mean that we should stop doing it. The problem is that the news is a black hole. It would take every penny you've got if you let it. So it really does require very careful, far more careful thinking about the news agenda that you, in a region, in a city, nationally, will decide to cover. You need to be far more clear about that today. I mean, nationally, it seems to me news has just become celebrity-itis. I don't think that that necessarily is what would work in a city or a region. So I think you can be far more focused. Newspapers are celebrity-itis. That seems to be what the news is today. So I think there's a great deal of news which hasn't been covered for a long time. I mean, going back to the archive point, I do think when I was young, which is a very long time ago, the news was not about journalists interviewing journalists, for example. Today, that's what you see far too often. A journalist is interviewing another journalist, not the principals in the story. And so I think that certainly in a smaller area, where you can focus far more. It would be far more possible to talk to the principles in the cases that you choose to examine.
Right. But equally, over those 10 years, we'd be making much more use of what we heard about embedded journalists.
And people send in videos.
Sending in videos.
Exactly.
So it's a different sort of news in 10 years' time. Gerard.
Question also could be, are there any newspapers left in 2020? So you're asking, everybody's going, we got a lot of competition, but I think that you only can make good news on a regional and local scale if you do it on public basis.
I don't know whether there'll be many purely traditional print newspapers left in 10 years' time. I just wanted to see if I could unworry David a bit by suggesting to him that plurality of news providers is a good thing, and it makes the citizen even more informed because they are now able to consume the same story from a number of different broadcasters and a number of different news providers, a number of different newsrooms, whether it's a broadcaster newsroom or a newspaper newsroom or a citizen journalist, make their own mind up. Does that make you feel a bit better, David?
Well, I certainly feel that in the future people will organise their own news much more by collecting information from sources that they trust. And certainly on Twitter, I was like, you follow the people who are giving you the information, and that is their brand. And they can exploit that brand over the next 10 years. I think what I would suggest, what our colleagues here have to do is make sure that they sustain their brands as value news providers. And by the nods, we've got confirmation they've got confidence to do that.
Yes.
That's good. Do you think overall that you're going to be, as regional public service broadcasters, weaker or stronger in the market in 10 years' time? Would it be impossible to have a conference like this because there'll be nobody left working? Or will you be filling the room twice over because you'll have grown and have many, many arms?
I think as Nick has indicated, in 10 years' time, a lot of people will be in this room, but not the same people. I don't mean because we've died or retired. I mean that there'll be a lot more audiovisual people who will be interested and involved in what we're doing now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that as long as we do, as you say, and sustain our brands and trademarks and our core business, I think that there is going to be more people, and we are going to feel more secure, I think.
Grethe?
No, I'm more uncertain. Well, like several have said, we have to follow the audience, and that will be the challenge, to know how to follow them and not getting broke at the same time. I think things are changing so fast that I would be surprised if it in 10 years is like it is today. There will be other bodies or whatever to entertain and inform people. So no, I'm really unsure.
Okay, Jean-Marc.
I'm sure I'll be...
After you've been in the job for 10 years...
But maybe in the French public television we'll have a change for France 3, which is we could have 24 independent channels working together and syndicate on some programs, but mainly regional more than national. That could be an opportunity. I'm not sure it will be what will happen, but there is a maybe it could happen.
Okay, Nick.
About 10 years. Where's everyone now? They're done by the pool, rather than discussing these matters of essential importance. I really hope so. This is my first Circom conference, and I have to say I thoroughly thoroughly enjoyed it. Whether we're here in 10 years or not, it's up to us, isn't it? If we carry on doing things the old way, definitely not. If we adapt and change, we've got a pretty good chance.
Right, that's a good segue into tomorrow, because tomorrow we deal with the skills and the leadership which are required to get to 2020 in good shape. So my thanks to the panel. Tomorrow we're here at 9 o'clock. We see the trainees who are trainees today and producers and editors of tomorrow. We talk about skills and leadership. Doug McNamara, Henry Eagles will be here. We then look at the role of Circom in helping us to get to 2020 in good shape, and what changes Circom might have to undergo as well. So please, with me, thank the panel.